Hello, I am a housewife in my 40s. I was born into a poor family. However, I got married, and my husband was from a renowned real estate magnate family. I am sending him my story about my experience with them. As from the beginning, getting married wasn't easy. As I said, I came from a very poor family, and my husband was from a family of a very rich landowner who could spend money like water. Their wealth was owed to my deceased father-in-law, who had a great eye for real estate. Even though he didn't have money, he barely managed to buy land that made a hit due to redevelopment or a new city being built. Every time, it brought him tremendous wealth. In contrast, my father was a poor farmer in the countryside. The potential conflicts with my mother-in-law showed signs when our families met at dinner. She had made a reservation at one of the most expensive Chinese restaurants and ordered the cheapest priced noodles for my father and me. She had all kinds of expensive food set right in front of my husband and herself. Then, while my father went to the restroom, what she told me was the most ridiculous. She said, "I ordered the food, taking into consideration your poor financial situation." But I said, "Mother, isn't this too much?" She replied, "It isn't. Even if it's not the case for you, the old man hasn't ever tasted these rich dishes. So, what if he gets sick after eating them? I'm wiser, so I did that just in case. He is not just an old man, but my father. It's the meeting of the two families. I wish you would keep your manners." My husband scolded his mom and tried hard to cheer us up by reordering other items from the menu for my father and me. I barely was able to persevere throughout. That was a good thing because I had come to appreciate my husband even more, thinking, is there such a kind man in this world like him? Due to my mother-in-law's intense objection, I could foretell the difficulties laid ahead of me, but I pushed ahead with this marriage because I may have been poor physically but wasn't mentally. I do believe that marriage is fusing two different families, and compatibility of status is very important. However, the condition must not be limited to the amount of wealth. First, the most important thing in marriage is how the couple feels about each other. I love my husband just as much as I love my father, and my husband also loves me the most in this world. Our lives are for him and me, not his mother. I thought it was possible because I didn't plan on receiving a penny from his mother. But was it my misunderstanding? My mother-in-law was not only wealthy but was very greedy, and she had learned all the worst acts other mean in-laws did. Of course, that meant doing whatever horrible things she could do to express her disapproval of this marriage. She declared she would never see my husband if he married me, and to cut off his inheritance and monetary assistance from her. She even demanded that I pay for all the costs incurred from raising her son. She didn't stop there. At the end of every sentence, she added, "If you want to marry that much, kill me first." Really? Is that what you want? Oh my God, this is why you can't communicate with poor people. I heard that you were also poor when you were young. Tell me if there's anything that's not a fact. I was so upset. If possible, I wished I could put a spoonful of cumin into her eyes. However, I bit my tongue. I didn't want to go down to her boorish level when my dad raised me properly. My husband sided with me, saying that he felt the same way. He acknowledged my patience and perseverance. His mother continued to bombard us several times a day, but my husband and I did not bat an eye. So, if the more she did that, my husband's disappointment in his mother and our desires to get married grew more. Ignoring my mother-in-law, my husband and I went ahead with our wedding preparations. One day, we were going around paying respect to my husband's relatives. One of my husband's paternal uncles told us that my mother-in-law was telling the relatives not to attend our wedding as a warning. He was very kind, worrying about me. "Your mother-in-law is not someone you could tackle very easily," he said. "Would that still be okay?" It would be a lie if I said I didn't worry. However, we have a firm commitment for each other not to give up on this marriage. Would you be able to handle her, who has the money and would use that to wield her ways? Of course, if she uses her money as a weapon, it would only work for people who want her money. I'm not marrying for the money, and I do not intend to even glance at her wealth.
I see, he said.
Then we will try to lend our hands. You can depend on us. Live happily. I learned that my mother-in-law was rejected by her husband's relatives. I could tell from my conversation with my husband's paternal uncle that he had a horrible experience dealing with his sister-in-law's unscrupulous wielding of money power. Thanks to him, most of the relatives became our allies and our wedding seemed brighter. As expected, my mother-in-law did not show up at our wedding. However, we didn't care. Instead, my father and I were so moved in front of our family. In front of our family and guests, we didn't feel any shame but pride as so many of my husband's relatives and elders attended our wedding that there weren't enough seats to sit. My side of the guests all exclaimed with happiness and excitement, "How great is the groom's family!" They must welcome the bride since so many relatives attended. My husband and I also prepared in advance so that the absence of my mother-in-law wouldn't be felt. Since we expected that she wouldn't attend our wedding, we had prepared an informal wedding and curtailed any formal ceremony such as having an officiant or dancing with the in-laws. But the head table seats for the groom's family were filled with my husband's eldest paternal uncle, an aunt who gave us their words of congratulations and blessings. It was a wedding filled with wholehearted congratulations. Even though I was fully satisfied with the wedding, my husband seemed to feel sorry for his mother's misgivings. As we departed for our honeymoon, my husband repeatedly apologized on behalf of his mother. I hugged my husband tight and comforted him. "Thank you for loving me, for marrying me. I will try to make you proud that I'm your wife. I will try even more. You are perfect. It's no wonder why I couldn't but fall in love and marry you." "Well, I agree. How could you leave the sexy and desirable woman alone? Still, please promise me. Please don't become a mom like my mother." "Of course I promise. I won't become a mother like her." That's what we promised, that we wouldn't waver no matter what his mom did. Our love wouldn't change. As expected, as soon as his mother heard the news that we had registered our marriage legally, she ran over to our newlywed home. She started to say again her usual gibberish. She said, since I married empty-handed, I needed to cater to her and move into her house and obey her and so forth. And it has sounded as though she would send me to one of her farmlands and put me in labor to work in the fields. Which meant we're not living in the Middle Age. I coolly refused. Okay, I will live as you tell me what to do and do farming, but your son will be criticized that he couldn't even take care of his wife. And would that be okay? You're such a bitch. I thought you were just a penniless beggar, but you're even sly very much. I may not have as much money as you, but at least I'm not a pauper in heart like you. What? Please go home carefully. Similar episodes repeated, but my husband and I ignored her. My mother-in-law would get all upset, raising her own blood pressure and returning with nothing. And for a while, she was quiet. She was not only quiet, but had changed overnight. She acted so angelic, erasing all traces of her greedy, mean ways, blinded by money. She treated us kindly and graciously, which made me uneasy due to her sudden change in behavior. I knew she wasn't the type to give up easily. She was scheming something behind my back. Why does a bad feeling that something would happen always turn out to be true? My husband's paternal uncle told us shocking news. He said that he heard my mother-in-law sold a piece of land to my father for a much more expensive price. According to him, the useless land was purchased by her, trying to act like a genius in real estate just like her late husband did. The land had no road connecting to it, and it was located deep in the mountain valley that was zoned to forbid any developments. She had purchased such types of land all over the country, and because of the huge maintenance costs of those lands, the wealth her husband left was noticeably being reduced. I could see the full picture of my mother-in-law's situation in my mind. She was going crazy for all the money lost from buying those useless lands and wanted to make up for her losses by having her son marry into a wealthy family. But he married me from a poor family. That was the reason she kept talking about money to my father. I felt terrible. Moreover, my mother-in-law gave me the chills when I found out that she sold the useless land that wouldn't be sold even if it was cheap, but sold it to my father at an even higher price than the market price. My husband and I didn't even have time to control our surprise and rushed to my father's house. Dad, what is this? Where did you get the money to buy the land? It's just that I wanted to enjoy my retirement surrounded by nature. You're not telling me the truth. I know what's going on, so please tell me the truth. Well, what should I do when she said that if I don't compensate for the money to raise her son, she would make you get divorced and threaten me every day? Sitting Dad still. Why did you even let her and take all that? When I saw you living so happily, I didn't want to let you get divorced because of us. If I could get a loan to keep you guys together, it was worth it. Any parents will feel the same way. I see. Please don't worry. You have this daughter and son-in-law you can rely on. We will pay for the loan payments. As when all her tactics against my husband and me didn't work, she had chosen my father as her victim. She sold her useless land at a high price to get paid for the costs of raising her son. My dad got as many loans as he could because he was worried that I would get divorced, being without a choice but to buy that useless piece of land. He must have been so worried as he looked years older. I was just thankful that my dad didn't get a loan from a loan shark. My husband and I were so furious at my mother-in-law's stupendous act, we pondered over it for several days. Then we went to see the elders and told them everything about my mother-in-law and expressed our wish to sever our ties with her. My husband's relatives became our allies just as they showed their support on our wedding. But now that we had our worries out of the way, we went straight to see my mother-in-law and declared our decision. Have you considered being isolated, scorned, and disrespected by everyone? You will be unwelcome by all those around you. What a thing to say to your mother-in-law. You have no manners. Mother-in-law, you make me laugh. As of today, you have no son any longer. Your relatives also told us that they won't ever see you for the rest of their lives. Actually, they are very happy about it. Why? Because you are always bragging about your money to them. They've come to be on our side. Do you think that would scare me? They have nothing. Let them be with their own sorry selves. Right, you go ahead and live as you have been for the rest of your life. Your only friend is money and live all alone lonely. Someday you'll regret it. After we severed our ties with her, we sold our condo and moved into my dad's house out in the country. With the money from the sale of our condo, we repaid a portion of the loan my dad incurred. We worked hard and took care of our dad. We diligently made payments on the loan. We had a dream. After we paid up all the loans, we planned to build a nice house on the land my mother-in-law had sold and live happily together with my husband, my dad, and me. 6 years had passed where my husband and I have worked harder than ever and tightened our belts to save money and were able to pay off all of my father's loans on the land. Then one day when we were sending the last payment on the loan, we received an unexpected great news. It was announced that my dad's land was designated to be redeveloped. At that piece of news, my father's land price jumped all of a sudden. The price increased like crazy, that it was more than 30 times what my dad bought for. When we faced sudden windfall from the sale of the land, my husband and I made a promise not to become like our mother-in-law. On the other hand, we had to prepare for her intrusion at the news about the land turning into a gold mine. As expected, she rushed over. She no longer looked like before when she had so much money from too many bad real estate investments. How dare you show up here after being strangers for so many years? But are you still blinded by money? Let's forget the past. No one is perfect and I just made a small mistake. But small mistake? You not only threatened my dad, but you extorted money and you call that just a small mistake. I'm sorry, I was wrong. So don't be mad and let's do the math correctly. I will pay back that money. Pay back that money? Don't you know the current value? It was originally my land. It was mine. So what do I need to do more? We will think about it and let you know. Please leave. You will let me know. Why? Did you think we would negotiate with you? Goodbye. Even though she went back, she called us and sent text messages by the hour and hassled us. She insisted on buying back her land at the original price she sold it to my dad. When we saw her greediness, whatever little affection we had left disappeared. We made her angry on purpose by our continued indecision whether to sell it or not. Then we just sold it to the developer at the increased amount. We paid all the taxes properly, Then my mother-in-law came back screaming and cursing at us and sobbed. We took her to a very expensive Chinese restaurant, like the one she took us when she was meeting my dad for the first time. And like that day, we ordered the cheapest dish noodles for her. Do you remember that day? Hey you shouldn't live like that. I don't know why you, of all people, say that. Please eat that and go. Just with this, we have no more debts to you. Then she screamed at us at the top of her lungs. You're right, Mother. This is why you can't communicate with people with no money, isn't it? You bitch, you go ahead and live like that. I will curse you as long as I live. For your information, I did not order the expensive cuisine. You won't be able to eat that anymore for the rest of your life, so I didn't want you to get sick from eating it. Just with the money we got from selling my father's land, we purchased a condo for my dad who suffered raising me. We wanted to live with him. I burst into tears as we signed the purchase agreement. I had thought that my father liked living in the country, but actually, he was a city person. He loved living in the semi-commercial and residential complex. However, to raise me, he had chosen to be a farmer out in the countryside. When I thought about his sacrifices for me, I couldn't stop crying. My dad was overwhelmed and hesitated to live in such a luxurious place, but my husband and I persuaded him that he deserved it and much more for him to enjoy. So my dad realized his dream of living in the city, and I vow to myself that I will take even better care of him to repay him. After that day, my husband and I have been living with my father, enjoying our affluent lifestyle. Rather than struggling in the fast lane, we chose a slower lifestyle while carefully investing to grow our assets. We wanted to spend more time with each other and love more. As to those relatives who helped us, we helped them with big and small family events. Everything was peaceful when our uncle told us about my mother-in-law. That woman only cared about nothing but money, and eventually she went down the sewer. What do you mean? You know that she blew all the money from the sale of the land your husband's father left, right? Of course, I was the butt of all her anger. She couldn't let go of her greediness, and she blew the rest of her money where she scraped everything. Up to now, she even lost her house, which was put up on an auction. My husband and I went to the address our uncle gave us. It was a cheap motel. The mother-in-law I met there was an old woman who subsisted by picking up old boxes from the trash bins, with no trace of her old looks. She received welfare money and food stamps, barely being able to afford to live in that old motel room. Still, she was my husband's mother, so I pitied her. However, she even threw away our last sliver of attention and pity. Hey, do you have any money? She asked. For old tensions, what is it for? I replied, I know this wonderful piece of land. I will introduce to you, she said. So why not buy me a house in exchange for the broker's fee? My husband just told me to leave her. She hasn't learned her lesson, he said. Let's go, honey. Semi-Krishing. Are you leaving? I asked. What about the broker's fee? Then how about getting me a lease? I suggested. Mom, grow up, I said. Aren't you ashamed? I asked. Please act like an adult. Be a human. My husband and I turned away when she started sobbing and cursing at us. My husband didn't hesitate even for a second. it was because she wasn't the type to regret and feel sorry for what wrong she has done. I'm going to love my husband even more and try to take care of my dad, and will try to live properly. Thank you for listening to my story, I said. Please cheer for me and write your comments of wisdom in the comment section. I requested. Pressing like and subscribing is a big help to me. Have a wonderful day.